Hello, humans. Welcome back to another episode of Awkward Solo at Work with me, your host, Emery. People around me will know that I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the reasons why my life has changed so much in the last year or so. This is not being dramatic. What basically happened was that I wrote a post that's quite personal on LinkedIn, and I guess the reaction I got was really positive, and it changed my perspective completely on LinkedIn, and it changed the way I saw LinkedIn, I used LinkedIn, how I just saw the world as well in general. So it's a very exciting thing for me, and so today that's why I have the guest on the show, and that's also one of the reasons why I started using LinkedIn differently and got connected with today's guest. She's someone who knows LinkedIn, I would say, inside and out, and a great connection I made on the platform. So I'm very excited to speak to her today. Here's our guest for today, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so thrilled to be here. I love your podcast. So I was listening to you speak with Shin, the episode with Shin. I know it's going back a while, but it was just such a lovely episode, and
Uh,
it's so so thrilled to be here with you and your audience.
Perfect. Thank you so much for listening. I think Shin's episode was probably the first couple of ones, so back to the early couple of ones. So thank you for spending time to listen to that. And I don't know if you noticed, you were actually the first person to send me a voice message on LinkedIn. I didn't know there was a function on LinkedIn I can speak voice messages.
And have you been using it for other people? Have you been leaving voice messages for others? It's
I
really powerful, isn't it? It's such a great way to really connect with people using voice.
Definitely, yeah. So when I first got your message, I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And this just looks like a WhatsApp. Like, what happened here? And since then, I've been using it, and it's great for on the go. And I think, the one thing is that I've realized, especially kind of now I've got into podcasting as well. The power of audio. It's just so much more personable. And it's just a great way to speak to people as well. And since then, I've been using voice messages to people, and then people also been saying, "Oh, I didn't know there was this feature on LinkedIn." So and it's also quite a good kind of icebreaker and opener as well, I think, sometimes on LinkedIn.
It is indeed. I'm coaching a client at the moment and he's very mature in his career. And he said, I'm leaving voice messages for people who are sort of, 60, 65 years of age, that generation. He said, and they don't know how to open the voice messages. Like they're like, what have you sent me? What is this? I don't know what to click on. And I'm like, yeah, but I think you should persist because even if they don't know, they come back and they say, well, what have you just sent me? And voice is one of the most trusted mediums. And I found that really surprising. I thought, surely it's got to be video.
Mm,
Surely it's got to be seeing people and how they move. But actually, it's voice. And when we think about how we trust Siri and Google Assistant and our GPS,
mm.
voice is so trusted. While when I sit down, I watch television, with my 10 and 12-year-old, and we might watch a movie like Avatar. And I say, oh, isn't this beautiful? Doesn't it look so real? My children are just like, oh, mom, it's so photoshopped. Like, oh, okay. So people don't trust what they see, but they trust what they hear.
Yeah,
So I think it's a really great way of connecting with people on LinkedIn.
definitely.
Once somebody's accepted your invitation to connect, leave them a voice message, let them know that you're grateful for that connection.
Yeah, and it also gives a bit more kind of personality in it as well, and not just like a written word. And the thing about audio is that we live in a world where there's so much going on. There's so much distractions on videos and things, and audio is it's just the audio. So it gives you the kind of extra touch to that as well. So it's definitely amazing, and that's what kind of fell in love with podcasting. That's why I started podcasting, because I kind of found the power of, I feel really connected to the person who's hosting. And I think that's really unique, and nothing beats that really. You can listen to it in the gym, you can listen to it while you do dishes, you don't have to sit down and watch the whole thing. So it's very interesting, and I'm really excited to see how it's going at the moment. I think in Hong Kong, audio is still slightly in the early stages in the podcasting world, but it's definitely growing and growing as well. So Karen, there's one thing I always like to do. So if you've heard of my episodes before, I always start a show with a rapid fire. She's nodding her head, everyone. We start in a rapid fire round before we get into the kind of nuts and bolts of everything. This actually has changed slightly since the Shins episode. So just be prepared. It's a bit different. So the first couple of questions about you, and then it'll be more of generic kind of questions I have. So the first one: LinkedIn training or speaking engagements for you?
Neither.
Okay.
LinkedIn profile writing.
Ah,
Really, there's a lot of LinkedIn trainers out there. And yes, I've been training people on LinkedIn since 2014. but I dreamed when I was young of being an autobiography writer, you know, a
Okay,
ghostwriter. And so I love writing people's LinkedIn profiles,
love that. Writing post or video?
writing posts written.
Nice. And what's your go-to song when you need a bit of motivation?
I don't have just one,
Give us a
but
couple.
yeah, there's
Mm.
I do a LinkedIn Live with Michelle J. Raymond on LinkedIn every fortnight, and she plays the Rocky theme because we argue on LinkedIn for about 30 minutes around about LinkedIn strategies, and we answer people's questions. And the Rocky theme really fits with our idea of let's give voice to diverse opinions. Let's not have an echo chamber here where everybody's agreeing.
Mm.
Let's really sort of fight it out to give our audience value. So we use a symbol of yes. I really like the Rocky theme song. You can't listen to it and not feel a bit fired up.
Yes,
You know.
yes, I agree. What's your favorite meal? And describe a setting for me.
I've been thinking about this and I have so many favorite meals, and I don't think it constitutes as a meal, but my absolute favorite thing and complete addiction is bubble tea. I
Ah,
just love bubble tea. It's got to classify as a meal though, right? Especially because I really
it
love
is
it when it's
very
got red
filling.
bean in it.
It can be a
So
meal.
it's a meal, yeah, especially in the quantity I have it. So I think my favorite is bubble tea, quarter sugar, like I don't want it too sweet,
Hmm.
with red bean.
Oh, love that, love that. And what was the best thing about this month for you?
The best thing about this month, I think there are so many good months. I'm working at the moment with a whole load of people, an agency who are doing fantastic work around environmental sustainability. And I'm really loving working with these 12 people really closely to transform their profiles and their journey on LinkedIn.
Mm,
And I feel so privileged to give voice to people who are making a difference to our planet.
love that. And give me one thing you're excited for in the future. Just a very general one.
Oh, one thing I'm excited for in the future. Um, Sorry, I didn't know you were going to ask me that one. And the first thing that comes to mind is when my 10-year-old leaves home. But that's a terrible thing to wish for. So she's only 10 and I love her dearly. But I sometimes think about that day. So what's another thing? That's so bad,
I
isn't
love
it?
that.
That's so bad. I also look forward to the day when my 12-year-old hopefully, meets somebody, maybe the right person. And I have this vision that she will probably live in the same house with me, with her partner, and I'll have grandkids and there'll just be a house full of people. That's my idea of heaven. I know it's some people's idea of hell, but I love lots of people around me.
The one thing I love about this is that we have this on record forever. So I'd love to see what she says in about, I don't know, 10, 20 years' time. Listen back to this. Would be an amazing thing to see her reaction on that.
My 10-year-old and we're kind of similar. So we have big highs, high highs, and low lows. So yeah. I often have to say to myself, Karen, one of us has got to be the grown up. Back down, back down.
Oh, brilliant. And I've got last two for you. Just quick ones. Fill in the blanks for me. Monday is,
Exciting.
and work is.
Fun.
Oh, brilliant. Isn't that just lovely? Work is fun, isn't it?
It is so fun. It is so fun. When you are doing what you love, it's not work. It's a joy. It's a compulsion, you know. I look forward to getting out of bed, and I always feel on Friday afternoons when I used to pick up my children from school, all the people would be like, "Oh, it's Friday," and I'd be like, "Oh, it's Friday." That's a whole weekend of housework
And
and driving people around and Bring on Monday. Bring on Monday any day.
I know we need to do Monday some justice. I think that's one of the goals of the podcast, that to overturn the idea of Blue Monday. That's going to be my absolute goal. It might be a while until I can spread that message to the world, but surely, slowly and surely, with this kind of stories, hopefully that could be one of the outcomes of it. So Karen, tell me, what is your idea about work when you were just a couple of years old, when you were a kid, when you were in school, primary school, when you saw your parents leaving in the morning? What did you understand the concept of work?
My dad's always believed in loving what he does, and he's always believed in chasing adventure. So, my dear dad, who's passed away now, was a bit of a workaholic and not always a great dad because he wasn't always around a lot. He just loved work and he traveled extensively and lived and worked overseas. So he wasn't around a lot, but I always saw work as synonymous with adventure. I always felt that work had to be quite long hours, which is something's been personally quite challenging for me, especially when I love what I do. You know, you're going to go, Karen, step away from the computer. But yeah, it's. I grew up with a healthy idea of work. I think
Mm,
healthy in the sense of I knew that it could be something that could be great fun.
great. And I mean, that's a really good kind of belief growing up, right? Because I think, generally speaking, especially with our kind of speech as well, the idea of work is usually kind of from a quite a negative kind of connotation to it, right? It sounds like it's stressful. People come home like tired and don't want to do anything, and you know, it really does shape you what you think about work when you eventually go into work from young. So tell me about recruitment in Australia. How did you get into it? Because I know I work in recruitment as well, as you know, and recruiting is a funny world. You know, when you speak to someone who does recruiting, no one's ever said, I studied for this, or it's something that I really was passionate about from like a young age. So what was your story?
I fell into recruitment. I grew up wanting to write autobiographies, wanting to write books, but I also grew up wanting to be an actor, but I knew I was a hopeless actor. I did theater arts and all that stuff. And I knew I wasn't great at acting, but I loved the idea of sort of being somebody. And I also was very interested in psychology and counseling and people. So I saw myself as a psychologist. Um, but my grades weren't good enough. I couldn't get in to do psychology because my maths wasn't great. And my parents had divorced because my dad was constantly away and like years at a time, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, like
Can I ask
years.
what did he do?
So he was in the construction industry and he
Right.
imported and exported wood, which is, huge in Southeast Asia. So he was away just for years on end. And my parents divorced, didn't have a lot of money, felt the university was too expensive. And so I fell into recruitment and I loved because I was pretty good with people and interested in people. And I loved it because I really like intense conversations.
Mm,
It's what I love about your podcast. I like that you're really digging deep with people. And in recruitment, you get to have those intense conversations. You get to have those, why do you do what you do? Um, what does your salary really mean to you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? You get to have all those really intense conversations. You're not chatting about the weather, you're having real
mm,
conversations. I really enjoyed that. And I really loved being at the nexus and the intersection point between somebody having a job and not from a power point of view. I hated the idea of power, but just being able to facilitate positive change.
mm,
That's a real joy, isn't it? And I did love it, but when I went on maternity leave in 2009, I it was around the time of the GFC, and a lot of people were being made redundant with quite a big recession. And I just started rethinking the industry and just sort
mm,
of thought, yeah, I don't know if I really want to be in this forever. And I love the idea of writing. I'd always wanted to be some sort of writer, but I lack creative talent. I work best when I have a framework. And so I thought, I think I could set up this home business while I'm on maternity leave, writing LinkedIn profiles. I know a lot about LinkedIn, and I think it's really important how we show up in the world.
Mm.
And I started it as a side hustle, and everybody laughed at me. My husband was horrified. My parents, like everybody, was like, "Oh, you can't do social media. Like that's just awful." And and I just stuck it out, and it's just grown. So now I've been doing that for years. So I'm lucky that I've had two careers that I've both loved. I loved being in recruitment, but when I fell out of it, I started my own thing,
Mm.
and it's just grown from
It's
there. It's been
amazing.
amazing.
I mean, yeah,
I'm
social
very
media
lucky.
still has a bad rep even now, right? Which is really interesting how that narrative is still around, even though that we've seen obviously there's good and bad and everything, but we've seen so much good has come out of it. And I've always thought that if we didn't have social media, I don't think any of us would have survived the past 2 years within the whole COVID and pandemic world. And I think it really helps a lot of people. I mean, it helps me for sure. And just stay connected, don't feel so isolated at home. So it is a very powerful tool when you know how to use it and then you're using it for good intentions. And I guess it goes the same with a lot of different things in life as well. But LinkedIn back when you first started, what was that like? Because surely when you first started LinkedIn, it wasn't what it is now, right? And I'm assuming it was still a very raw platform. What did you see in it? And tell me about what was it like, just LinkedIn in general back then?
It was the opposite of intuitive design. It was the complete opposite of intuitive design. You really, I'd started using it as a recruiter. So
Yep.
I think of LinkedIn as a house, a tin shack, if you like, that's been tacked onto a building in some slum. Like it was really basic. It was so basic and pretty yuck. And and it was just a place where you stored a resume. And then 2000 and then people started posting content. So 2012, but it wasn't until 2000 and late 2013, early 2014, it became a publishing platform, and normal people like you and me could publish content. And so that was like LinkedIn thought, we'll do a little house, a little extension on this shack, and that'll be just for influencers. And you had about 100,000 influencers were the only people who published for a couple of years. And then it was everybody. So that was sort of a bigger extension. And then they thought, and we'll create this messaging function, and then that came on, and then company pages came on. So it's just been like a little slum shack that's just had a palace built around it,
Wow.
you know?
I love that
And
analogy.
so and it means that, sometimes people are saying, I always get lost on LinkedIn. I'm like, and I always think it's like that house, right? Where you're wandering from room to room going, wow, who would have known there was all this search
Mm.
functionality here? You just kind of turn a corner and you find an unexpected room. So it has grown so much over time. And I think it still has a bit of a branding issue in that you can say, oh, Facebook's for friends and family, nice
Mhm.
alliteration as well. So it sort of feels nice. Twitter is for news and LinkedIn. Well, what is it? Is it for jobs? Is it for networking? Is it for publishing? Like what? It's for a lot of different things because it's got so many different rooms on it. But I love what you said there about how, it's really helped people to feel connected through this time. I also think we need to think about the rise of loneliness and the importance of diversity. And it gives voice to people who have a mission, who are changing the world. And it means that other people on the other side of the world can see it.
Mm.
And it doesn't feel as close or as personal as Facebook. And there's some safety in that for a lot of people. It's like, I'm not exposing you to my children, and my mum's not stalking me on there. I mean, I'm sure my mum's tried. I'm sure she's tried. I think my mum keeps setting up LinkedIn accounts to see what I'm up to. She just can't figure it out. But So it's a safe space for many, and it's quite sanitized in a
Mm,
way because unlike Twitter, you have to use your real name. You've got a photo there, you've got your employer there. So that might make it a bit more boring in the social media world because it is sanitized, but it also means that it's a more respectful place. And I think that's really important.
definitely, yeah. I feel like a lot of people who are on there as well, not just community on LinkedIn in general, they also kind of self-police what people say, right, on the comment sections. And I've seen this before as well. I think maybe some of your post or some other people's posts is that, they wrote something personal and then there was a negative comment on it, and then other people just kind of self-police that person, and they call them out for it. And I don't think there's a lot of places into the platforms, social media platforms, have that kind of organically just because everyone wants to do that.
Yes. In fact, I think on other platforms you can get the opposite, where, if we look at even Quora, but I was looking at the other day and people were all sort of arguing on Quora and it got sort of quite nasty. And Twitter, it can get quite nasty. But there is a wonderful sort of LinkedIn police where people are saying, this is a safe space and it's respectful and people will call it out. And the content does become more like conversations.
Mm.
I've only ever once been trolled on LinkedIn and it was so mild. And I had done a video, it was my first video for a long time. And a woman commented on it and said, great message, great content. It's a shame she's so unfortunate looking. And unfortunate looking. And I was like, oh
Oh
my
my.
gosh, I can't believe somebody said that. So I snipped an image of it, and I sent it to a couple of my people I knew on LinkedIn who have become friends. They're actually influencers. They've gone on to have like Ahmed Iman and, Irana Kadali, and people have gone on to have like hundreds and thousands of followers. And I said, oh my gosh, somebody's just called me. And we were all in a group chat. And I said, somebody's just called me unfortunate looking. How funny
Oh
is
my
that?
god.
And I was amused by it. I thought it was hilarious. My 12-year-old thought it was hilarious. My 10-year-old was like, Mummy, you're not that ugly. That
that, that also helps.
But the irony, so many people jumped on and attacked her in this thing saying, oh, you shouldn't say that, and it takes a lot of guts to make a video, and how can you say so many people commented on her comment
Mm.
that when you looked at the post, her comment was the most visible. So no. So the irony, it really it was, it
Oh
happens.
wow.
So I like that the community comes in to help, but what I should have done in hindsight is probably just deleted her comment or ignored it,
Yeah.
because I ended up just drawing more attention to it. But it's kind of funny, right? You've
No,
got
but
to
it's nice to see other people jumping in and supporting you as well, because I always kind of think, that's obviously something that I guess people who doesn't really use social media for trolling will always kind of wonder, it's like, why do you feel the need to be so nasty, right?
And
Like,
when people were commenting back, she actually wrote in the comments. She wrote, "I feel like she said, people are being. Why are you all being so unkind to me? Why do you think?"
yeah, karma in full effect, I call that. And so I mentioned in the intro, for me, LinkedIn has been a massive turning point, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of these stories as well. Given obviously you use it as your kind of daily thing, and I've always used LinkedIn as my day job, as a recruitment kind of tool, where I just search for candidates, and I have been in that mindset for the past 5-6 years. I was taught LinkedIn was for just that. Like you said, it's for resumes, it's for CVs, it's for recruiters to look for you, right? Why do you think LinkedIn profile is so important? And why do you think we're seeing this new kind of trend of LinkedIn kind of becoming kind of essentially a kind of like a profile in general? Because LinkedIn is so powerful now. When you search someone's name, most likely their LinkedIn profile comes up first, even if they have a website or whatever else. So why do you think that's changed, and why is it so important?
I think the reason why it shows so highly in Google is because of the relationship between Microsoft and Google. So I think it's the most trusted medium.
Mm.
Google, when you look at where things rank on Google, so many social medias are just way down. LinkedIn will always rank really highly, and Microsoft works really hard on that relationship with Google. So, and everybody's Googling everybody. And so I think it's also human behavior. I think we're a lot more careful with the time we spend with people, and we need more touch points to want to talk with a salesperson or enter into a relationship with somebody. So ironically, while we're all yearning for connection, we're also a lot more circumspect about, do I really want to spend time with that person?
Mm,
We're not, how many phone calls do you get these days, Emery? How many phone calls do you, hardly anybody ever calls me anymore. It's only ever my mum. Like
yeah.
nobody ever picks up the phone anymore. You don't get telemarketers, you don't even get your friend's phone. I often get my friends send me a text saying, is it okay to give you a call at the moment? I'm
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
yes. Like, because we're constantly WhatsApping or texting each other. We're not actually interrupting and just communicating on the
Mm,
fly. So I think as times become more efficient and we're a lot more cautious about giving away our time, interrupting others, and having others interrupt us, if we're going to have a meeting with somebody, we're looking them up on Google, we're looking them up on LinkedIn and thinking, do I really want to invest time in you? Is it
mm,
worth me talking to you about a business deal or collaborating with you? Or, we want to know, who are you and who do we have in common? And I think that who we have in common on LinkedIn is not talked about enough. I think it's really important to sort of understand that we do sort of all seek to find commonalities.
mm,
Have you been to a university? As to me, what do we have in common? I introduce you to somebody on LinkedIn who's doing some advocacy work that's sort of similar to yours, and sort of you two are doing similar things. Can you both connect? It's about finding those common points, and I think it's around time efficiency. I think people just want to make sure that they're investing time in the right people.
mm. That leads me on very nicely to my next question. So I always do this assumption round about kind of just what the general conception about work and a lot of things are. So awkward settle thinks networking is a waste of time. It's a very, very fancy way of people just getting their name out there and nothing really ever comes of it. What's your response to that?
I think the word networking doesn't leave a nice feeling in our mouth, a little bit like the word work. When you say work, it's a hard word. And I'd love to know if it's a hard word in other languages. It doesn't sound friendly or fun.
Mm.
And I think networking feels a bit ick. Like it feels like you're going to go to a business
It's
function and
quite
you're going to try and,
formal sounding, right?
oh, it does. Networking. It's just such a yuck word. And it doesn't feel like a nice concept. So I don't think about that when anybody says, oh, you're going to get me networking on LinkedIn. I say, no, I'm going to get you connecting with people
Mm,
and building relationships. And we're going to do that proactively because we're not going to let luck or happenstance, that we might find the right people. We're going to actively search for people who can inspire us and people who can aspire us and people who we can collaborate with and work with, and looking at who can lift us up, really. So I think of it as connecting, not networking.
wow, I love that. And you're right. I mean, as soon as I kind of, I've never really connected with people on LinkedIn unless I was looking for a candidate. Back in, before I kind of used LinkedIn different to what I'm doing now. And the minute I kind of took away the word networking and thinking it's like a chore, it just became so natural. Like nowadays, I meet someone, I have a call with someone. I heard about this person doing this kind of business. I automatically look them up, connect with them, and then just write them a message. Like it takes what 30 seconds, if not 60 seconds, a minute at most, to craft that message, and then bang, you can start a coffee or you can do a Zoom. It's just so convenient, and especially the way LinkedIn is built as well. I'm not a very techie person, but I think I've heard that the organic reach and how it kind of shows things on your feed is a lot more organic compared to Instagram or Twitter. So you can literally connect with people everywhere in the world, and the most random spaces, and that's how we kind of got connected as well. I think your name just kind of just came up in my feed, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting, and that's how kind of I reached out, and that was kind of it.
So are you reaching out to a lot of people at the moment? Are you, and when do you reach out to people? Do you create content and then, Emery, do you reach out to people who are commenting on your content if they resonate with you? Or are you proactively searching? Or what's been your strategy there? I'm sure our listeners are wondering,
Yeah.
who do you, and I hope that listeners will reach out and connect to you, because that's another thing. So often we're known, but we don't know other people, and I think it's nice to have a relationship that's two way.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really got like a set plan of what I do, but I mean, nowadays, whenever I meet people or go to events, if I struck a good conversation with someone, I definitely sort of have keep their name in mind. And then when I go home, I just send a connection, say, hey, I met you this and this, or I heard about you at this and this event. And that usually then, because the event you go to sometimes, right, you can't really stay and chat with one person for a long time, right? You can't really get into, that real conversation, right? So you tend to jump around a lot. And then, once you connect with someone, you say, I met you at when and what kind of event, then you can start a very natural conversation and kind of start where you left off before. That's kind of one thing that I do. And like you said, people commenting on my post, or I spoke with someone, let's say, on someone else's post, and then we kind of sounds like we have similar beliefs, or we kind of see things in the same way, and then I just get connected. But I like what you said there. So it's quite sporadic. It's not like I have a set kind of day or time where I just connect with people. I guess just whenever I see um, when it's fit. I think before, when I started to think, let's really use LinkedIn, and then I was like, okay, every day I'm gonna do this and do this, but that never works out. I think when you plan things too much, it doesn't really work as well. It just feels like a bit of a chore, like kind of back to networking, right? But as soon as it just seems very casual, it's just a much easier thing, and I think it's lovely as well when you get connection and when you get like a personal invite saying they actually write your name. And write the one thing about, you clearly can see is not like a copy and paste message. That always kind of makes me smile a little bit as well. So I kind of use that, and then kind of think about that when I send connections to people, thinking that I just want to make sure this is a very personalized message, and we start off in a really good in a really good way.
Yes, absolutely. So personalizing invitations to connect, I think, is really nice. There's a LinkedIn speaker in the UK, John Aspirian, and I've heard him say that if you're sending an invite to connect without personalizing it, it's a little bit like being at a networking event and sneaking your business card into somebody's back pocket and
Mm.
walking away really quickly before they turn around. And I think that's such a great metaphor. You're missing that opportunity to leave an impression. Um, and it is so easy. I think all of our phones now, you can do Google to voice text convert,
Mm.
and it can write something for you. And then you can go in and you can change it, so you can insert all of the grammar and stuff like that, so that, you're not writing crazy typos and things like that. So I think it's a really nice thing to personalize invitations if you've got the time.
So I'm doing the right
And
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are. But I do disagree with you a little bit, just a little bit, in terms of templates, or scripts, in that I think you can have a basic, hi, space, 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 space. Hope you might be open to connecting here, and then your name, full name,
Mm.
and then maybe a position title, or so you could have podcast host or something. So position title or something, and then phone number. Nobody's ever going to phone, and your email address, and you could
Mm.
have that, and you could, if you're always living on your mobile, if you're constantly on the go, you could use an app like Text Expander, which will enable you to have, I think it's 12 or 15 different templates. And then you don't have to every single time type in your
Ah.
email address and type in your full name and your position title. And the reason why I think it's good to use templates like that is because you've got one chance to make a good first impression. And when you send somebody an invite to connect and you include in there your contact details, it means that they don't have to go looking through your profile to try and find your contact info details. They can easily reach out. It means that if they've got a question right then and there, they can send you an email and it stays there forever. It stays in their messaging history. Even if they archive it, they've got to actually delete your message in order to lose that. And most people will leave it there forever or they'll archive. So it's a really nice touch point. And by having your job title in there, you're just saying, this is Emery, and his podcast host, Awkward Turtle. So it's that constant reiteration of who you are and making that synonymous so that you're really building your personal brand in that way.
Wow, this is why I have you on this show, Aaron. This is why I wanted you to be on it, because I knew you just going to have some really great tips and just great perspective on how we can use LinkedIn for whatever reason you're using it for. And I actually saw you say once in another interview that, and I found this really interesting, is that you said something along the lines where most people don't actually know why they're on LinkedIn. It sounds very silly, but most people just want to be at LinkedIn because someone they all have one. Everyone nowadays have LinkedIn, right? It's kind of a first thing you do when you start a new job. You change your LinkedIn title. It's what they tell you to do, right? But why do you think people do that? And tell me a bit more about exactly what you meant by people don't know why they're on LinkedIn.
They don't. They really don't, though. Most people are not intentional. We're not, and I speak for myself here, I'm not intentional enough. I was thinking today, I'm not intentional enough with how I eat. I am eating way too many biscuits recently, way too much bubble tea. Especially as my 12-year-old's learned how to make it at home.
That's
Just,
dangerous.
I know she
Once
hasn't
you,
mastered
yeah,
a red bean yet, but oh my gosh, seriously, like three lots of bubble tea a day is not going to
wow.
be good for my waist time. So I think most of us are not intentional enough with all areas of our life. And when it comes to social media, we often start a LinkedIn profile to get a job, but we stay on there because we realize that it's a place that we can keep in contact with colleagues and peers and business stakeholders and people who are interesting, and it's a nice safe space. And so when we're at a lift or we're waiting for an appointment to start, we're hopping onto our phone and we're skimming through LinkedIn, and we're not being intentional about why we're there. And I think that all of us have a part of our life, professional or personal, which could do with being bolstered by having the right people who share your mission or your vision, or maybe you want to start a side hustle, maybe you want to create a movement, maybe you want to connect with people who lift you up, who show you what's possible. And so I think it's really important to think, what parts of my life are missing?
Mm.
And this is very personal for me, because when I started my business, my husband, who I'm still married to, just saying, was dead against my business. He was like, oh my gosh, so you've gone from being a recruiter, from pimping people to, yeah, nice, right? I'm shaking my head, by the way, for the listeners, and I'm rolling my eyes simultaneously. But he was like, oh my gosh, and now it's all about social media, and you're dressing people up on social media to make them look really amazing, so they attract all these opportunities like this. That's not a good business to be in. I'm like, I just feel that people lack objectivity about themselves, and they don't always know how to speak about themselves in a positive way. So I feel I can really make a difference. He completely disagreed. So for me, I went on to LinkedIn to gain clients and to gain allies. I needed people in my corner. My girlfriends were like, you are so lucky to have a husband who just wants you to sit at home and polish his shoes. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really? Like, I don't think so,
Yeah.
girlfriend. Like that's not my dream.
Mm.
I love working, and I have a vision of being able to give a voice to people and help them to get their work and their mission out there in the world. And I think I can do it, and I know the platform, and I can write. And and I know, we used to be a recruiter for 14 years. I know what jobs,
Mm.
what employers are
What people
looking
look for,
for.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read tons of marketing books so I could sort of master the marketing side. And so I built allies. I was on LinkedIn with the primary goal of getting clients, but a very close secondary goal of choosing my cheerleaders. And I think that when we're all intentional with our time on LinkedIn and we think, what part of my life is missing? What do I need more of? And we're scrolling through the newsfeed. And when we see a post from somebody we're connected to, it might be our colleague, it might be our best friend's boyfriend, it might be our boss. And we just think, oh, and that post makes us feel not good about ourselves.
Mm.
We've all had those moments. Probably have those moments a lot on Facebook, but we have it on LinkedIn too. And when you see that, just click on the three dots in the corner of the post and unfollow that person. You're still going to be connected to them, but you're not going to have those posts in your newsfeed. And so I think we need to be intentional with who we're connecting to, with how we're writing our LinkedIn profile. Are we what we put out to the world is what we get back. So we need to be very careful that we're putting our best foot forward in an authentic way, but we're also creating space for what we want to attract. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I kind of see it. I mean, the reason why I kind of find it so interesting is kind of on a very similar level of how I see work or how I see people see work. A lot of people work; they don't know why they're working, apart from the obvious reasons of you need money to have food, to pay for your rent, all that kind of stuff. But like, they don't know why they're doing the job they're doing, and they don't know why they're earning the money they're earning. And so that's why I find it so interesting what you said about LinkedIn as well. And I guess it kind of goes hand in hand. Like nowadays, LinkedIn and work is kind of merged into kind of a really general kind of where your CV is and where people find you as a recruiter. And I completely get what you're saying. Is that we do lack a lot of intentions because I don't know. This is my kind of my perspective is that because the way the world works now, everything is so quick, right? You get a response, you get a result so quickly. Everyone expects results, and results also include time. So we kind of, a lot of us kind of skip the process of why we getting these results. And that sometimes is the most important thing. Is kind of back to what you said. Why are you on LinkedIn? What are you using it for? And it's so powerful once you work it out and use it in the right way or use it intentionally. Great things happen from it.
Yeah, so I think it's worth just, I love that. Like, Emery, like, how embarrassing. I have actually never thought about what you just said, that most people don't know why they work. And I think that's so true. I think they don't. And as you say, they don't know what they're earning money for. Like, they don't attach a value to it. Not really. They're not. Yeah, that's so, so true. So I just think that to get the best result in everything in life, we've got to just sort of stop, put pen to paper and think, what's missing?
Mm.
What do I want more of? And how can I attract that? And when I talk about attracting it, it sounds like I'm very sort of airy fairy and I'm about to start sort of reading your aura or something. But I think that's I really believe there's a real science to it. If somebody's always saying something, that's what you think about.
Mm.
And so that's why I think when you send people an invitation to connect and you're interacting with them and you've got all over your profile a consistent message, you need to think, well, how am I branding myself? And just make sure that you're you're attracting into that void so that it's not a void anymore.
Mm.
Um,
Absolutely. I can talk to you for hours, and I love how this conversation is going. But there's always going to be an end to the show. I'd love to have you on another time if you're free again sometime in the future. Just talk about something a bit more different as well, but on the very similar path, kind of what work is and what it means to you, for example, or anything along those lines. It'd be great to have you on back on my show, Karen. And because of the show, the name of the show is Awkward Turtle. I always like to end on, what advice would you like to give to the turtle?
to think about oh, I think I've just said it earlier. Think about what you want to attract into your life and know that I think it's really important for all of us awkward turtles out there. We are all an awkward turtle in some area of our life. to know that you're not alone, and to know that networking don't just strike that word, that yucky word off, and think about connecting with the right people. Think about growing your connections with the right people, because we're not alone. There's so many people out there. I think LinkedIn is 774 million people now, million members. Like, that is a lot of people. Awkward turtles need to stand together.
That is a lovely way you just put that together. I couldn't say it better myself. Well, if our listeners want to know more about you, which I'm sure they've still got millions of questions they want to ask you, where's the best place to find you? I assume LinkedIn.
You can find me on LinkedIn, absolutely. Just make sure you get the spelling of my last name right. So whenever anybody hears Karen Tisdell, they always hear Karen Tisdale, and it's not Tisdell. So it's Tisdell, Karen. So find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me just by typing it in the search bar. And a quick hack, if you ever can't find somebody because there's lots of Karen Tisdells there or whatever, start typing in the name of their company, and that person will come up to the top. So if you start typing Karen Tisdell, my business name is Karen Tisdell, then start typing in Karen Tisdell again. I'll rise to the top, and just click follow, because I do create content to help people. I do believe that when you pay forward, it comes back tenfold. So please do find me on LinkedIn, follow me, because like the questions you've asked today, I do endeavour in everything I do to be helpful to others.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me. And I think that covers it all. And it's great to hear sort of your perspective as well, especially the way LinkedIn's going. I'm sure a lot of people will be quite interested in sort of what we can use LinkedIn for. And again, why we use LinkedIn. That's a question to everyone to think about after this episode. If you guys are looking for LinkedIn tips or do's and don'ts, or even just how you can write your story in a way that is inviting, just go look Karen up on LinkedIn. She's got some amazing content out there. It's all free. It's all on LinkedIn. You can look at it anytime. And it's also quite evergreen as well. I think what I love about your content is that it doesn't really go away. The same thing, obviously, we talk about decades, a bit different, but what you post today can also be relevant in a year's time. So some great stuff on this, so make sure you go check it out. I'll also put all the information on show notes, so it's easy for you guys to have a look. So my name is Emery. I've been chatting with Karen. I would love to hear what story spoke to you the most. Tell me what career you want to get into, and tell me what your passion is. All right then, that's it for today. Awkward Turtle, over and out.
Take care, everyone.